Hello, and welcome to IPMA USA's 2016 Dialogue Webinar Series. Your host today is IPMA USA VP Tim Jakes, and our presenter is Dr. Meg Infiorati. Her topic for this January event is Introducing the IPMA Project Excellence Baseline, or PEB, as we call it. We hope you enjoy and benefit from this event. Thanks for your participation.
As an introduction, before we get into the specifics of the PEB, a little bit about who I am, since I don't know most of you. I'm the Director of Standards for the IPMA USA, took over that position this year. Historically, my trade is an organizational psychologist, which is what I do currently. Prior to that, I was a partnership director for Motorola, where I handled over 200 contracts and the projects for integration, marketing, rollout, etc. So I have a pretty wide variety of experience in the project management world. I was a founding member of the Nepal Project Management Association in the country of Nepal when I was there for 5 years. I've also been a member of ASAPM for probably 6 or 7 years now. Regarding the PEB, which is new to IPMA, it is an outcome of the many award assessment processes that have been taking place over the years. I've been an assessor on 5 major projects around the world, and I will be a facilitator or trainer at the upcoming USA PEB training workshop, which will be held April 10th through 12th for those interested in becoming certified assessors. So it's a little bit about me. To continue on with what we're going to be doing today, I'm going to introduce some of these seminars. As you can see on the screen, we'll be talking about things like the IPMA ICB-4 release, the new version of the ICB that will be released this year. We'll be talking about the PEB today, as well as in potential upcoming updated Project Excellence Model events. We have seminars on talent management coming up, the IPMA OCB, or the Organizational Competence Baseline, how you can become ICB certified if you're not already, or you can move up the certification path into the levels CB and A, the awards process, and much more. So we've got quite an exciting year scheduled, and this is our first move forward with the webinar series, and we hope that you'll come back each month as we host a new topic. Remember to bookmark the IPMA USA website, because we are making a number of changes and additions fairly regularly now, both on upcoming webinars and other important information. So we'll go ahead and move down. Oops. So today we're going to talk about the Project Excellence Baseline, the Excellence Model, what the value is of the IPMA Excellence Baseline, how you can be an advocate both in your organization as well as with your peers, how you can become a certified assessor, what it means to assess an award applicant who applies for the award from around the world, and again, at the end, we'll introduce the next 2 planned upcoming seminars. Tim, do we have a poll at this point?
Yes, we sure do. I just launched a poll, everyone. If you could just take a minute and submit your answer. And the poll asks, how familiar are you with IPMA Project Excellence approach? Have you heard of it? Are you not at all familiar, a little familiar, somewhat, very familiar, or perhaps extremely familiar? Okay, so we'll just take one more moment on that. And let me close the poll now. Go ahead, Meg.
And can you tell us what the results were, since I don't see that?
So 20% not at all familiar. Here, I'm going to share the results. 20% not at all familiar, 30% a little familiar, 40% somewhat, 0% very familiar, and a full 10% are extremely familiar.
Fantastic. So we've got a wide variety, and hopefully those of you who are not at all familiar will come away with some new and exciting adventures ahead of you. And for those of you who are already award capital knowledgists, I look to working with you in the future on this. So just to move forward, we're going to introduce the excellence baseline primarily through its purpose. So when we talk about the IPMA's approach to project management, it's broken down into 46 competence elements. This is for the individual competence baseline. They cover the areas of technical competence for project management. There are 20 elements within there, professional behavior of project management personnel, as well as the relations with the context of the projects, programs, and portfolios. The IPMA competence baseline takes into consideration national cultural differences as well by adding specific competence elements and content that come to us from each of the member associations. So from an individual perspective, which is one aspect of the baseline, we look to the individual's ability to perform well as perform well within the context of their environment. The Organizational Competence Baseline, or the OCB, describes 5 groups of organizational competence. They are project, program, and portfolio governance, management, organizational alignment, the resources, and the people competences. These 5 groups are broken down into 18 individual competence elements, and the goal of the Organizational Competence Baseline is to take a look at all of the people that work within the organization and help each individual, regardless of their job or their position, move up within a project excellence approach to delivery. The PEB, interestingly enough, is the final baseline that is used, and it is used specifically to assess a project. So at this point, we are assessing how project management within an organization is utilizing the very best features that it has available within its organization, as well as how innovative it becomes in order to deliver to its stakeholders not only what they want, but in a sustainable mode for long-term growth of the organization. Used together, these 3 standards provide a very comprehensive way to assess a project or program within the organizational environment. The main purpose of the PEB, or the Project Excellence Baseline, is to describe the concept, or it's the concept of excellence in managing projects and programs. It serves as a guide to organizations to assess the ability of their projects and their programs to achieve excellence. As the baseline is derived from TQM and other related models, organizations have already dealt with these concepts. These are not new to them. And we don't have any problem within the PEB utilizing whichever model they choose to use when they come in for an assessment. So if you're using TQM or EFQM, those are specific to certain aspects of the project. We utilize within the PEB the ability, we look at whichever one an organization has chosen to use and apply that. And determination towards excellence is how well did you use it? How well did you utilize all of the factors of whichever process you've chosen to use? That approach is used whether it's financial approaches, whether it's quality approaches, design approaches. However the organization chooses to utilize certain tools, the assessment process, or the Project Excellence Baseline assessment tool, can be used with all of those. The baseline came about after, as you can see on the screen, we have over 108 finalists in the IPMA award process, 18 countries, 12 years. What that means is we took all of what we've learned from all of the assessments, it equals several hundred years of man experience, has been brought together to create the baseline, taking a look at the best of the best projects across the world. What we found is that now that we've taken that set of projects, we've been able to utilize the PEB in any industry, with any process, and on any size projects. So as an example, one of the project winners last year was a very, very small organization in Nepal, in the very hinterlands of Nepal, who took a building and converted it into a hospital. It's a social humanitarian organization. Very small budget, very small number of employees, just a very small project. Compared with the winner of the largest project, which was the Incheon Bridge, which is a multi-year project, many millions of dollars in valued budget, and then also thousands of employees. So we have multiple categories within the award process, but the good news is that the assessment of excellence doesn't really care how big your project is. It should be excellent whether it's 2 people or 2,000 people, and that's what we look at. So the main focus is to achieve the expected results and enable some continued improvement. So what are the outcomes of these purposes? Well, we drive continuous improvement not only within a single project, but throughout a project's life cycle, and how it contributes to other projects within the organization, either simultaneously or for future projects across the organization. How do we do that? Through regular monitoring for delivery of sustainable results, continuous improvement in project management methods, recognizing excellence and excellent projects quickly and immediately for application of those methods and processes to other projects. We recognize leadership and management performance as they occur, not at the end of a 2-year cycle, for example. Additionally, complementing project audit tools selected by the organization. There are a host of things that are in the continuous improvement model, or excuse me, in the continuous improvement mode within the model. Next slide. So why is the project excellence model valuable? That's one of the things that people ask us, because to put another model in place, let's face it, the whole world has 1,000 models. So we took a look at why would you consider this a value statement? Why would you want to bring this into your organization? Well, the first thing to look at is that the project excellence model is divided up into 3 excellence areas. The first is the foundation for excellence, which takes care of our people and the purpose we're doing a particular activity. One of the main new focus areas for project management is that it is your people who do each task. It is your people who assure that the resources are either available or created. And it is your people who will make sure that your stakeholders are both considered and delivered onto. The second area is the reinforcement of excellence, the processes and the resources. In this area, we clarify and scale our resources. We want to make sure that our resources are reliable and that we can continuously improve not only on what we utilize as resources, but how we interact with our resources. So when we look at our third parties as partners, we look at them as not just a delivery mechanism, but as a party to delivering the stakeholder quality. Finally, from a project results perspective, this complements the other 2 areas, we're looking at our proof of excellence. How do we know that we met the project results? How do we know that we exceeded the project results? This is an area that's assessed separately and distinctly from the other 2, because you may have very happy people and you may have very happy customers and your product may not be great. Or your product may be fabulous, but your customers are not happy. So we look at the project results separately and distinctly in order to assure that all 3 areas get not only the needed attention, but they also get an opportunity to shine. So in the model and how we incorporate all those facets together, we found that as a foundation for achieving excellence, you need to have the right people understanding the purpose, knowing where they're going, knowing what's expected from them, and being led in a good manner. If that one is missing, the rest of the areas that we talked about in the model are basically pointless because people are not going to be doing their jobs. Dedicated people often make up for the processes, but great processes and tools won't make it if the right people knowing what to do aren't there. So when we look at this holistic system, you can see how they're all integrated, not only in the success path, but also in the potential disaster path. So they all work together for success. When we look at drilling down into the value within each area, and we can utilizing the model, we can look at the sub-criteria with the people within the people and purpose area, for example. This can be used as a benchmarking tool to measure the level of project excellence on a scale which highlights where your project lies from excellence to general expected or to areas for improvement. Within the people area, we look at things like leadership. What are the values of the organization, and have they been imposed within, or infused rather, within the project, as well as explained to and really taken to heart by all of the members of the organization. The same area goes for purpose. Does everyone understand the purpose? We look at stakeholders, partners, suppliers, team members, and then we also, within the model, look at people who are not directly affected. So if it's your community, if you're putting in a new bridge, is the community affected? If you're going to be building a new business, how does the electric grid work for that environment? And in some areas of the world, that is a very, very big issue. So on some projects I've been on, they actually moved an entire section of town. They literally physically moved the town so that they could get these very large panel platforms that they put on ships to move out. And then they moved it back. And they did it in a way that assured that the entire town, all of the people in the town, were satisfied and had no business interruption. So again, nobody would typically historically think of doing that, but that's all part of this leadership, values, objective strategy, and people aspect of the model. From the processes and research, yes?
Meg, quick question from a participant before we get too far ahead. Can you please clarify, what is the focus of exceeding results? What does that mean? That was, I believe, 2 slides ago.
When we talk about exceeding results, for example, I'll just give one example that came up in a project I was assessing out of Italy. Their job was to deliver eventually a 7-story gas and oil pipeline platform. It had to be, the engines were produced in France, the platforms itself were produced in Italy, and there was a third smaller component of people who came from, I believe, Singapore, who participated in most of the engineering tactics. When we say exceeded the results, the government of Australia, which is where these were being transported to, required that when the 7-story platforms arrived within a certain kilometer distance from the barrier island off of the northwest coast of Australia, they needed to be completely sanitized because the barrier reef island is a natural protected area, and there are, in order for, for example, you can't go there as a tourist. There are tremendous restrictions on anything that comes within a certain kilometer area of the island, unless it comes by nature, which of course would be a, not a tornado, but a monsoon or something like that. So what they did in GE was they said, we can ship this and then sanitize it, or we can go over and we can go above and beyond. And so what they did was they sanitized it in Italy and did essentially a shrink wrap of a 7-story building to assure that nothing that left Italy came with them. It was all on the outside. When they arrived at the barrier island, it allowed them to do the sanitization of the shrink wrap area, and when they took the shrink wrap or the plastic off, the time for them to have to sanitize that 7-story building was cut in half, which allowed the end user to take receipt of that early. Now for them, sometimes early is not good, but for them, the earlier the better. There were 7 of these being delivered. So by the time that they received these, they were able to move faster to build that pipeline and connect it, and of course get the pipeline running for that gas back to the country of Australia in order to, of course, handle the infrastructure and the lowering of costs overall. So that's an example of when you can exceed an expectation, you take advantage of that opportunity, and although it wasn't an initial requirement, it was something that they were able to do above and beyond for the betterment of the stakeholder. Does that answer the question as an example?
Thanks, Meg. So the scope result was met and the schedule result was exceeded. Is that?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. When we drill down a little into the value relative to the processes and resources, this area represents the practices that are necessary to reinforce excellence through the sound processes that you implement and the adequate resources that you call for in order to achieve efficient and sustainable projects. Now, whether it's a people project, a product project, or a service project, the processes and the resources that you pull in are directly affected by the people aspect of this. Now, so when we look back at the Foundation for Excellence, it's one thing to have people and purpose, but just because you're doing a service project, which is also people, does not mean that you don't have to have the appropriate processes and resources in place to continue to support that service project or, of course, that product project. It also serves as a basis for securing the outcome of some types of innovation. You can turn the area of processes and resources into a solid starting point for another wave of improvements, for example. So, in order to avoid a question on this a little bit later, when we look at the issue of innovation and new waves of improvements, from a project management perspective, when we look at processes and resources, we always try to find, for example, the best third party or the best third-party product to bring in if we need to do that. When we look at innovation, quite often people look at innovation only as building my own versus buying it, or putting a set of requirements on somebody to build something better. Quite often innovation doesn't always go outside and say, well, how could we just do this differently? So as an example, I was down in Mexico last year, and Mexico City had one of the highest crime rates in the world. In a small area of Mexico City, they have now become the safest city in the world for this area, and that's been codified by several studies out of New York and some other universities, but primarily out of the New York area because they were also interested in putting in this particular device. So their answer to this was to put in cameras on telephone poles. Well, that was great, and they did that, but they realized that in order to become safe, they weren't safe to start with. So for them, the innovation became the capability for third parties to pull together to build the entire pole, which was 3 or 4 different parties, all together in a safe location that was guarded, and that when they went out to actually deploy one of these poles, they had a team that would go out that included a security team, the installation team, the trucks, and things like that. But they also had decided to build a mini testing environment that they could take with them to test and ensure that that pole was up and running. Now, the reason that that was innovative is because in Mexico, that was not something that they would ever have thought to do in the past. Their whole approach to IT was take it to the location, install it, and then test it against the major system. Fairly simple. Most people do that. In Mexico, because they had this security issue that was so, people were dying, so they had a very, very serious problem that they had to resolve. They determined that they wanted that pole to be up and running and immediately available to the citizens in that area as soon as they brought the pole out. And within typically 40 to 60 minutes, they could have a pole up and successfully implemented and available for citizens to press the button and call for help. And the camera immediately shone a light on the area. It took photographs of all the people in the area, and they were able to feel safe and actually have a two-way conversation with the police dispatching team. The security team that was needed was able to go on to the next one without having to stay in an area to protect the pole, which is what they had to do for many, many months prior to that. So innovation can be a process. It can be, of course, a product. But what we want to look at is how do you assure that what you do is not only sustainable, but is creative in getting it done, if that's possible. So just one example. When we look down at the value area for results, the project management approach can only be excellent if it leads to outstanding sustainable results for all of the key stakeholders. But we also look at all of the stakeholders, so we're not necessarily key stakeholders, but they may be third level stakeholders. So your community, for example, or your electric company, if they're providing, you know, an excessive amount of electricity to you now, or your water company, are they able to handle your influx and outflow? The area complements the first two because it handles the necessary proof of excellent results that are defined by the project stakeholders. So in this case, we might have two-thirds of the pie going very well, but we may not have great results. Here we actually look at the results as an individual aspect of assessing a project. We also at this point take a look at what you did with the information that you gleaned along the way using the assessment model, because it's not a beginning and end model, it's a continuous improvement model. So if you're utilizing it, and you incorporate it into your project, you know, whether it's your breakdown structure as a task, or you look at it as your project process from a PMO perspective, we want to look at how you utilized changes that were required or information that was acquired, and how you then apply that to ongoing projects that are subsequently ongoing to the project or simultaneously ongoing with the project in your organization. We also look at things like, how did those changes affect your partners? Did your partners take a look at what you did and modify their business? Did you help them to become better business partners? So a lot of things happen in the project results area that typically people would look at just as, how did you deal with your partner? What we look at is, your partner may have had results over and above what we normally would look at. And that's how we achieve excellence, because it's not, no company or no project stands alone as an island. It is only as good as all the people, all the resources, the third parties, as everyone who is involved, including leadership. And I bring leadership now again because project results, you notice the arrow is moving back up into the foundation of excellence, is where we looked at leadership and values in the first place. So did your results actually achieve what your leadership had wanted to achieve, what the values of your organization and your project had stated they were going to be? So it is a circular process, continuously looking at all of these factors to determine whether or not you can be better. And if you can be better, how does that make us all better, individually as well as from an organizational perspective?
Meg, I'd like to suggest a poll at this point, if we can.
Okay.
So I'm going to launch the poll right now. The poll is, I would like to ... and select one or more of the following: learn more about the PEB, explore awards for my organization, assess and improve projects in my organization, become an IPMA PE award assessor, and I don't know. I'm just curious. If everyone could just take a moment and complete the poll. And we'll just give folks another couple of moments here. Thanks. Just 10 more seconds, and we'll close the poll. Okay. Thanks to everyone. And the poll results, I'm going to share the results up here. So it looks like 67% want to learn more about the PEB, 25% are interested in exploring awards for their organization, 42 to assess, another 42 or 42% of the whole are interested in becoming an award assessor, and 8% are just curious. So thanks everybody for taking the time to fill out that poll, and let's keep going.
Okay, well, thank you, Tim. It's always good to know that people are continuing to be interested as you're giving a webinar where you can't see somebody's face.
Ah.
So let me let me talk about the the assessment approach outcomes. How do we actually use, yes?
Meg, I'm sorry. I do have a couple of questions here.
Okay.
If that's all right. So here's one question. One question is, I'm a university professor. Hi, Brent. I'm a university professor teaching project management. I would like to share content that you are sharing with us today in my classroom. There's a real benefit of incorporation of the proof of realization and continuous improvement evolution. According to the IPMA website, the IPMA PEM is an integral part of IPMA Project Excellence Baseline. Do you know when will the IPMA PEB, the Project Excellence Baseline, be available for the public outside of this webinar? Has training been developed that can be shared generally on IPMA Project Excellence model?
Okay, so two questions there. When? The first PEB training is taking place actually this coming weekend in the Netherlands. There will be 5 training programs specifically on the PEB if you're looking to delve deeper. It's a 3-day workshop. The first one is in the Netherlands. There's one in Milan. There's one in Kathmandu, Nepal. There's one in, I believe, Jakarta. It's in Indonesia. I think it's in Jakarta. And then the last one will be held here in the United States in Detroit, April 10th through 12th. Now, from a general perspective, to be able to get information on the PEB, they have not released the final version of the PEB. They are going through the trainings first to make sure that all of the information fits and that they don't have any inaccuracies in both the document as well as the marketing materials. The information will be available on the IPMA.world website, which you can link to from the IPMA-USA.org website. So from our website in the USA, you'll be able to link to the IPMA World, where you can get the ICB, for example, the Individual Competence Baseline, the OCB, and again, the PEB will be available out there when they release it, which should be within the next, hopefully, I'm going to say 2 months. With our training being April, by the time we do our training in April, everything should be solidified and completed.
Meg,
as far as training goes,
if I may just add to that, I think that it will be available hopefully in the next 30 days for download and then in the next 60 days for print.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yep. In addition to that, this presentation will be converted as soon as we finish. I'll convert this into a PDF, and we'll be forwarding that on to our marketing director, Stacy Goff, who will then be able to put that up onto the IPMA website. Hopefully within a day or two, that'll be done as well. Shouldn't be any longer than that, but you'll have this information, at least this presentation in PDF form, which you'll have access to right away. So does that help?
I think
you had another question, Tim?
Yeah, no, that's it. Thanks. Let's keep going.
Okay. So we've talked a lot about what we look at and what we want to assess and within a project and all of the different facets of assessment. So how does it actually take place? When we look at the baseline, the way that each area is categorized for assessment falls into 2 categories. Under the people and purpose category, as you see, for people and purpose and the process and resources, we use the PDCA approach. PDCA, plan, do, check, and act. That is the method that we use. If you're not familiar with this, it basically is assessing how the criteria is approached from a planning perspective, so follow that by whether or not the plan was then acted upon. We follow that with whether the plan was checked for both for quality, for approaches. We look at processes and just whether or not you actually checked to see that what you said you wanted to do was actually getting done. And then when you find that there are areas for improvement, did you in fact take actions to rewrite the course, so to speak? So plan, do, check, and then act. It's a circular approach, and you can see that on our graphic from the light blue to the gray. We plan, do, check, act. We plan, do, check, act. We do that continuously through the entire project. If any of the planned or PDCA tasks are missing, it's easy to identify where a project could have attained a higher level of excellence if that task had been performed. For example, really well-planned projects may never come to fruition. We may do a lot of things, but sometimes it's just dumb luck that it works out okay. And that's not terribly bad, but it certainly wasn't something that you could have controlled. So with PDCA, we take out of the mix those things that could have happened just by sheer luck. We also take out of things that are out of scope or beyond the budget, and we add them to the Plan, Do, Check Act as an active action with a plan behind them, instead of a custom requirement that just comes in and we sort of shovel it into the rest of our time or quality or budget scope. So PDCA allows you to control your projects better, as well as find out where your projects are going wrong faster. From the project results area, the PEB assesses from the no proof level that have within the subcriteria to the met the particular criteria, or all the way up to exceptional. These are perceived results based on the expected indicators, and it links the items in the A and B quadrants, or the people, purpose, and processes, resources quadrants, or I should say 2/3 of the assessment approach. It links them to the project results in a way that allows us to say, yes, you said you were going to plan to do a certain task, do, check, and act it. And when we look at the satisfaction criteria, if you did exactly what you said you were going to do, then you have essentially met a 50% criteria. You have done what you said you're going to do, that's good. When you exceed, when you do additional tasks, or you engage additional stakeholders, or you become innovative, you can exceed those measurements. And when you do have issues within the PDCA and you had to perhaps retrench and fix a program or find a new supplier. I was on a project task where the supplier of the, and I believe it was aluminum, it was a metal, I think it was aluminum, turned out that they thought that they had enough for the project. They didn't. They were taking a risk which they had not informed the customer about, and the customer who we were assessing ended up without a third-party alternative. So what they learned was to do some better financial tracking of their suppliers, as well as building alternative supplier tracks during an ongoing process. Now, that might sound simple to us, but when you're in the throes of a project, you might not always think, holistically. So their satisfaction criteria, they finished the project, they did it on time, they actually did it within budget, but their processes to get there, so within their PDCA, were lacking. So it helps you not only determine whether or not you're achieving what you want to achieve, but do the outcomes, do the results have proof statements that you can hold up for your own organization to say, yes, we did what we said we were going to do. And by the way, here are the areas we exceeded in. And not to forget, these are the areas where we could actually improve on. So this benchmark that is established for your organization becomes a baseline that you use within your organization, and you continue to grow from there. From an individual perspective, if you were the project manager or if you were aspiring to be a project manager, this is the type of assessment that could help you become more aware of what is needed in order to achieve an excellent project. The satisfaction levels on the indicators here, as the indicators show here, are always set at 50%. That means that you have achieved what you said you were going to do. You can increase your success, or you can find areas that need improvement. One of the other things this allows you to do is to compare yourself against other businesses within your sector, or other sectors. If you are an oil and gas company and you want to compare yourself with other energy sectors, you can do that with So for example, the wind and solar industries, you could go ahead and compare yourselves to them. How efficient are you? How effective are you? So it's not something that is limited to a particular type of industry. It's an assessment that says, this is where I am today, and here's where I want to go by the lessons learned. And here are the things we did really well that we want to apply to new projects that are coming down our path. So the PEB in practice across this project life cycle, when it's completed, we support this process, rather, the Project Excellence Baseline assesses projects from every direction, from all of the different perspectives, from all of the outcomes that you could have within a project, and all of that information, that valuable information, can then be divided up and sent out to individuals as well as across the organization for these future programs, projects, and portfolios. So when I was managing a healthcare software portfolio, I had about 30 products in my world, and at any given time we had 3 to 5 overlapping projects, product releases or projects that were going on. Every time we learned something in one, we didn't have to apply it to the next one. We had to apply it to 4 or 3 simultaneous development processes at the same time. Next to me in the next office was a product manager, because that's all we were at the time, and he had his own 32 products. Every time we made a change, it affected his. So now I have my 3 or 4 different projects that were constantly being affected by each other, and I was affecting his. Simultaneously, his would affect mine. When we looked at our product, we then had an issue called the federal government, and it was in healthcare, and how did the healthcare industry make changes to me? What pressures were they putting on me to make changes? So when you look at all of the different pressures, without something like this tool, we were not always sure how things were going to come out because we didn't have a really good model. Now this was back in the early 80s, which of course gives you an insight to my age, but it helps to look at the progression of project management as a profession and how these types of tools, these assessment tools, really give you an opportunity to be successful at every level, not only individually, but within your facet of control, as well as how you contribute to the success of others within your organization, for the organization as a whole. So hopefully that's a little bit of understanding of how you use the tool without actually having to tell you all about the 42 criteria and each aspect of that. So before I go into why you should be a PEB advocate, does anyone have a question on the actual tool and the assessment model and how it is utilized from an assessment perspective?
None right now. We can keep
Okay.
going.
All right, so now we look at why you should be a PEB advocate or a Project Excellence Baseline advocate. And we do this because it's one thing to say it's a great tool. It's another thing to say here's what makes it such a great tool. So the first thing we look at is that projects are continuing to fail despite these incredible investments that we're making. Often the world hears that number, 60% of all projects fail, but frankly there's been no empirical evidence that has measured that. I think primarily because nobody wants to admit there's a failure. But when you look at the numbers of grumblings in newspapers and magazines and online journals, 60% seems to still be that number people latch onto. The key, though, isn't really whether the number is 60% or something else. The failures are always the ones that are more highly reported on, and those are the ones that we see reported regularly in those publications. Now, as an individual, we don't want to be associated with that failed project. So what we want to look for are any tools that we can garner that would help us assure, if not 100% excellence, at least a path to excellence. The second area or reason for being a PEB advocate in your organization is that it's your reputation and your resume that can be damaged with a failed project. Not to talk about anybody in particular, but I do have friends who I know have been associated with a couple of failed projects, and for them to put that on their resume is something that they minimize as much as they can, because they were fairly well-known projects. in the industry, and of course being associated with it, and then being the part of the project management team on that certainly does not help them when it comes to confidence in your next employer. So your reputations and resumes are potentially affected by this. The PEB helps you achieve what we call an all-in participation model in your organization. If you follow the PEB, it actually does require one of the, I shouldn't say require, but one of the recommendations is that all of the stakeholders are looked at not just from the outcome or the end customer perspective, but your board of directors for your organization is a stakeholder. Your CEO is a stakeholder. The PMO manager, not just the person who's assigned to you from the PMO office, but the manager of the PMO office is a stakeholder. So it helps you to think, holistically about all of the different people who could be stakeholders and could be essentially affected by the outcome of this. So the PEB helps you create this all-in participation model within your organization. For each project that's assessed under the PEB, lessons learned and implemented contribute to better overall organizational structure. So the PEB promotes this conscious management approach versus blindly following a process. As I say, there are dozens of processes and dozens of tools out on the market today. And it's one thing to utilize them, it's another thing to utilize them wisely. And the PEB helps you not only assess what you're doing, but what are the tools that you're going to use to achieve your success. It asks you those questions. So as an individual utilizing the assessment tool on a regular basis, you get to always have it's almost like having your guardian angel on your shoulder watching what you're doing and sort of whispering in your ear, have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? To help you become that excellent project manager and deliver an excellent project. Finally, when you participate in assessing the best projects in the world, it's great for the award applicants, but mostly it helps you build your own personal body of knowledge. You can bring that to your organization, and you can also eventually use it to compete successfully for IPMA awards and some worldwide recognition. As I said in the beginning, I am an organizational psychologist. I've never held the title of project manager, but I have managed hundreds of projects. Most people in the industry today look to the term project manager as a specific individual within an organization, but many organizations in many organizations, projects involve people who don't use the title, but actually need this knowledge probably more than most. So I'll just say, to be frank, while I've never been a project manager, I often am the best project manager in my room with my teams that I work with, because I have a more holistic approach thanks to the IPMA Project Excellence Baseline and the models, the ICB, the OCB, and the PEB. It helps me be much more holistic in my thinking. So as an example, last night, in our district, and last night, there are very good reasons not to do this, understand the financial reasons for doing it, and so my team asked if I would speak because I can look at this holistic problem. And we did actually achieve our goal, which was to put the entire budgeting process on hold for 30 days while we come up with an alternative to help them keep the school in place. It's not that I'm the best at it, it's that in some things I can help people be their best. And I think that's one of the things you want to do as a PEB advocate, is to utilize what this assessment tool does and help each individual on your team or people who are affiliated with the team be the best they can be. And that's what this does without actually trying to measure people or train people or convert people into something else. So it's a very valuable tool in that, in that mode. So how can you excel in using this? Well, to start, you can go ahead and take a look at the IPMA World/Awards website. We affiliate the assessment with the awards because that's where IPMA built it out of, was the awards process. In the United States, we're not necessarily award prone. We typically look at ourselves as trying to just be the best we can be. But if you look under the award process webpage, you'll be able to see a little bit more about how it's used in an award approach. Now, if you were to look at your own project and say, if I were to put this up for an award, how would I rate? The way to do that in your own organization, in the privacy of your own organization, is to take the Project Excellence baseline and try to measure your own project against those criteria, see how that comes out. So that would be one of the first things that you could do. Come and take the 3-day PEB workshop. It's April 10th through the 12th. It's going to be held in Detroit. It's actually at the Westin South Field. We've got 2 trainers coming in from Europe. There'll also be a trainer from Canada, Peter Milsom, and myself, so we'll have 4 trainers in the room. It's a small, limited group. We're only allowing 20 to 25 maximum people, primarily because the 3-day workshop is all hands-on. Everything you do will be utilizing the PEB assessment tool in actual real case studies. So we can't have 80 people in the room. It's not a lecture style. It's actual hands-on, and between the beginning of Sunday and the end of Tuesday, you will have performed an entire assessment and drilled down into every single facet, every element within the PEB. So very deep down drill of the PEB is available. When you finish the workshop, one of the things that you become is a certified assessor for the IPMA Awards process as well. We'll get to that in a minute, but there is an actual additional value which you can put onto your resume. As I said, resume building is always a good thing. You want to look at your project through the eyes of the criteria that's found in the PEB, not only within your project, but how your project affects your organization. If you learn the PEB and you begin to bring these criteria out within your organization, you can essentially become the eyes of excellence within your organization. So individually, certainly helps you, but helps your organization as well. We're always looking for people to enter projects into the award cycle. The 2016 award cycle will start with a 2-day webinar that's available to any award applicant to come and learn the award process. That's held in March. I believe the information is also at the IPMA World Awards site. Take a look at that. It'll tell you what happens. But you come to the webinar and it'll tell you what you have to do to become an awards assessor. In brief, you'll basically write a 30 to 35 page guided, we give you a guidebook, guided description of your project against these criteria. And once that is sent in, there's an independent jury that has nothing to do with award assessors. They know the assessment tool, but they're being trained on the new PEB as well. The jury takes a look and determines whether or not you meet the standard of an excellent project, which you will know as well when you assess your own project. It is then assigned to a team of between 3 and 5 people, depending on the size of your project and the location. And then the team will assess what you've written. They come to visit you to, I guess, just fill in the blanks. Many times, writing a 35-page application, people just tend to forget things. So we come, we take a look, we continue to improve, and what you get out of it as an individual and as an organization is a benchmarking report that says, you know, we've assessed down to the very nitty-gritty details of this project, everything that could possibly be done, everything that was done, and here's what we found. So it's a benchmark report that helps your organization improve in the future. Additionally, of course, there is the award process. So you could become a finalist, you could become a bronze or a silver or bronze medalist, or of course the entire overall winner. So it really depends, but you could go ahead and go down the project process, and there's a lot more on that if you'd like to discuss that.
Meg, I'd like to
and then, of course, you know,
interject here, if I may, with the final poll of the day.
Yeah, okay.
So the final poll of the day, I'm going to launch it right now, and that is just generally, we promise not to be annoying, and this is not a big sales pitch, but we would like to just get a sense of, is anyone interested in becoming an IPMA PE Award assessor? This is a new concept for us here in the United States, and we're looking to get folks, understand how much of a desire there is. So give everybody another 15, 20 seconds here to complete this. Obviously, attending here and participating is great. We're glad that people are interested to learn about this. So another 10 seconds. All right, thanks everybody. I will close the poll
Okay.
and sharing the results. All right, 64% said yes, they are interested. 27% said no, not interested, and 27% said please contact me. So thanks everybody for those results, and back to you.
Okay. Okay, I will tell you that being an awards assessor has been one of the more enlightening roles I've taken on in my career. Just the things that I've learned, not only from the projects I've assessed, but from the other assessors that are on the team, is astonishing. So I will just say that if you do choose to go down that path, it is not only very rewarding, but it is a heck of a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun for 4 or 5 days with people you've never met that you end up knowing very well. You spend, most hours, minus 5 or 6 hours of sleep each night with them, and you just are exposed to a phenomenal amount of potential project, I'll just say project process that you might not have ever even thought of before, as well as some cultural issues that you might not have thought of before.
Meg, I'm going to give you the 2-minute mark here.
Yep, just continuing your IPMA PEB journey. If you do decide to come to the class, I will tell you that you are required to attend all 3 days. You can register. This information is also available now on the IPMA-USA.org website. The big key to all of the process, the whole issue here on the PEB, is that it allows you to dig deep into at least one of the best projects in the world with your assessment team and take home some valuable insights and suggestions for your organization. So we just want to make sure that that there's value for you individually as well as your organization. So I think we've answered all the questions unless we have some more that came up. Tim?
Clarification on the 2-day webinar.
Yeah, 2-day. Yeah.
And what's the cost?
Okay, so so for the 2-day webinar that's coming up in March, that is for organizations who are interested in submitting their project for an award. That is free. The webinar is free. The project process or the award process, it depends on the size of the project, but can cost you anywhere from, I'm going to say, $3,000 or $4,000 to $25,000, depending on how big you are and where you are. Also, where are the assessors coming from? So when I went to Kathmandu, when I was living in Kathmandu, they sent me all the way back to the United States to assess a project in the United States. That was a very expensive trip for them. Had they brought only people from the UK, that would have been, or from Europe, that would have been less expensive. So depends on the project and the knowledge of the assessors that are required for your project. And typically in the $10,000 to $15,000 range.
What's the
class price?
What's the cost for the training?
The class price for the training in April, from April 10th to 12th, is $395. And I will tell you that this is actually $125 or so less than they're offering it in the Europe and Asia quarters, primarily because it's new here, and we really want people to become not necessarily assessors, but to be able to take the model and utilize it in their own lives. So it's $395 in Detroit.
Hotel and travel are in addition to that?
Addition, correct.
Thank you. All right, it's 4 o'clock. Let's go ahead and wrap it up.
Yeah, I'm just going to wrap it up and tell you that we have 2 seminars planned. The first is in February on the 17th. Stacy Goff, our Director of Marketing, will be talking about talent management and how that can increase your project's success. There's a whole host of topics, and the audience that should come forward that is invited to that and would find the most benefit. You'll be able to register for that link starting on January the 20th, which I think is today, at the IPMA-USA.org site. And then in March, we have a webinar that will introduce the new ICB version 4. So anybody who's looking to be certified in the next year would be interested in the ICB 4. That registration will open on February 18th. Again, we're looking for additional ideas, so if you have anything that you'd like to see us do, please send us a note to the info@IPMA-USA.org site, and we'll look to find a specialist who can speak to that topic. And with that, I will turn it back to Tim and just say thank you very much for your attention, and we look forward to speaking with you soon about this.
Meg, thank you very, very much for this. Very much appreciate it. And thanks to all who participated in this and for your great questions. We hope that this was a valuable hour for you, and we look forward to your feedback on this. Please feel free to email us on that. Just to echo the words of Scott Freoff, Stacy is a handsome guy. Did you see that photo of him? All right, everybody. Thank you all so much, and we look forward to seeing you on February 17th at 3 p.m. for Engaging Talent Management to Increase Project Success. Have a great afternoon. Thanks, and bye-bye.
Thank you.